Chapter 21. I'm not crazy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. It was Aunt Zhang who had spoken. She had been behind Qin Yu and had raised her eyebrows to look at Qin Ran. She walked a few steps towards her, her voice so sharp that everyone looked over. Ning Wei knew Qin Ran wanted to get her a chair. But Aunt Zhang's gaze was strange. It seemed to send daggers into her, making her feel extremely uncomfortable. Ning Wei pursed her lips and tried to ignore her. There were sounds of inhalation around them. The other relatives were envious and surprised. No one found this unreasonable. Everyone thought it seemed only obvious. My goodness, 580,000. You can pay for the down payment for a house in Yuncheng with that money. It can probably buy 2 houses in our town, right? Ning Wei clenched her hands tightly. She took a few steps forward and whispered a little urgently, Ran, I'm fine. Qin Ran looked up. Then, she laughed and smirked in a cold and bad manner. 580,000, that's such a large amount of money. She looked sideways at Aunt Zhang, Ning Qing, and Qin Yu. The light in the box was dim and it hit her face, making her eyes seem even redder. It was narrowed slightly, dauntless and arrogant, as if she was about to break through the horizon. Her expression was proud, her smile mocking, and her eyes evil. Qin Ran, you. Ning Qing opened her mouth. She had called her Ran before, but now, she called her Qin Ran. What? Qin Ran paused before slowly reaching out to take the violin. She weighed it in her hands before casually putting it on a table. She turned, a little irritable and astringent, and kicked the chair to Ning Wei. Aunt, you can sit, she said. The whole room was very quiet. It was weirdly quiet and everyone's eyes were on this side. Ning Wei's body stiffened, feeling a little uneasy. That violin. Aunt Zhang reacted at this time. That's Miss Violin. Who cares about the violin? She's here to eat, why did she bring a violin? Qin Ran licked her lips and smiled. Her eyes seemed redder and, under the not too bright light, her eyebrows were drenched in evil spirits. You're so annoying. I'll pay you 100 violins if it breaks. Qin Ran thought that she had been quite repressed. It was this Ning Qing and the Qin's family nanny that was too petty. Standing at the tip of the pyramid every day to watch people, were they not tired? No one spoke in the box. The group of relatives remained silent. Qin Ran raised her chin and her eyes narrowed slightly. When she saw the waiter passing by the door, she leaned on the table, raised her chin, and snapped her fingers sharply. Come, serve. After dinner, Qin Ran took Ning Wei and Chen Shulan and left first while Ning Qing was still dealing with the relatives. The relatives had originally come for Ning Qing. They weren't here to see Chen Shulan, so it was to their favor. In the room, after Qin Ran left, the atmosphere became active. Qin Yu smiled, raised her glass, and was extremely elegant. I apologize for my sister. This group of relatives was also a group of elites. They were also clear about Ning Qing not wanting Qin Ran back then. Your sister is just like that. Her aunt immediately waved her hand in disregard and pursed her lips. At the age of 16, she dared to hit someone's head. I heard that he was sent to the emergency room and the police had to come quickly. Qin Ran fought very well and her fights were a common occurrence. Last time, they often saw Qin Ran being injured. She didn't do that anymore, but she was still fierce and vicious, which was why this group of relatives were a little afraid of her. Speaking of this, Ning Qing's face turned black. Nobody told her about the police. Big niece, this Aunt Zhang. The aunt saw her expression and immediately turned to the topic while smiling charmingly. This is Aunt Zhang. She's in charge of the Lin family's daily life. Ning Qing took a piece of tissue and wiped the corners of her mouth. The expressions of the group of relatives watching Ning Qing and Qin Yu changed. You see just how good this family is. They event have servants. Qin Yu went out to the bathroom and Aunt Zhang immediately followed her. Her tone was mocking as she said, "Miss, don't show your violin to Miss Qin in the future. When she eventually breaks it, you will be the one distressed." She even said she would give you 100 more. Can she even afford one? Qin Yu bowed her head and washed her hands. She smiled when she heard it. For ***, Mom, Aunt and Qin Yu are still. Mu Ying glanced back at the box, hesitant about leaving. Ning Wei shook her head. Qin Yu and Ning Qing obviously didn't want to have a relationship with them, but the child still didn't understand. Don't think about it, let's go home. She walked slowly, her footsteps sluggish. Qin Ran followed behind them with her hands around her chest. They first took Chen Shulan to the hospital and spoke with her for a while. Mu Ying kept looking at the facilities of the ward. After leaving the ward, Qin Ran looked back. Ran, tonight. Ning Wei opened her mouth. What was wrong with me tonight? Is Ning Qing a fool? Under the lantern, the girl's gaze was fierce and cold. She sneered. Does she even know that you injured your leg when you dropped out of school to earn money for her school fees? 5. Ning Wei was silent. L.RG Qin Ran rubbed her temple and her voice softened. Aunt, I'm sorry. I'm not angry at you. I'm not angry, I know you're doing it for me. But Ran, your mother isn't wrong. Your uncle's hospitalization matters were all handled by her. Ran, your mother doesn't owe me. Ning Wei smiled. She reached out and touched Qin Ran's head, her eyes softening. Also, I don't want you to have a bad relationship with your mother. After all, you are mother and daughter. One under the light, Qin Ran's eyebrows were cold. Her mother now wanted so badly to sever ties with this group of relatives, and she didn't even want her daughter anymore. She was afraid that the group of relatives would go to the Lin family to make trouble. She didn't want to tell Aunt about these. Comment, Mu Ying and Mu Nan are coming to first middle school, right? Qin Ran took out 2,000 yuan from her pocket and handed them to Ning Wei. You hold it first. When Mu Ying and Mu Nan go to high school, they can't just learn casually. Don't let Mu Nan work. This is the money I earned myself, not from my mother. I don't want the money, you keep it, or I'll buy you 2 sets of clothes. Ning Wei's eyes fell on Qin Ran's clothes. Qin Ran rubbed her teeth. This aunt was really capable of doing that. She had transferred 100,000 to her aunt's account back then. Now her aunt's account was almost 110,000. Not a dime had been spent. Aunt must be keeping it to use as her dowry. Qin Ran said nothing and put the money back in her pocket. 2 days later, when it was the holidays, she would go to her aunt's rental house to take a look. She could use the money to install an air conditioner, which Ning Wei definitely wouldn't bear to. Right, Aunt, are you finished with the medicine? Qin Ran remembered another thing. She felt around in her pants pocket. Then, she took out the white pill bottle that Gu Shiqi had given her and passed it to Ning Wei. At this time, Ning Qing hurried over. The driver of the Lin family had probably sent Qin Yu back, since it was Lin Jinxian who accompanied Ning Qing over. Is Mom asleep? What are you talking about? Ning Qing took a breath and asked. Mu Ying immediately rushed to speak. Auntie, Grandma is asleep. Cousin is giving my mother medicine. Ning Qing frowned. Everything that had happened at night had made her lose her face. In front of her stepson, she deliberately put up with her temper. But Qin Ran frowned, tilted her head and sneered. It was disdainful, mocking, and arrogant. Ning Qing seemed to have been triggered, like a balloon that had been pierced and exploded. Her volume was high. Qin Ran, are you still like your grandfather, doing drugs every day? Your grandfather already killed himself. Forget about it if you crazy people want to harm yourself, but now you want to harm your aunt. Mu Ying and Lin Jinxian had never heard of these things. They were stunned. That's the medicine that the country has put into experiments. Qin Ran looked up and said word for word. I am not crazy. At this moment, even Ning Qing looked up a little hesitantly and stared at Qin Ran. Chapter 22. Master Wan. Who did you call crazy? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, sister, what are you talking about? Ning Wei pulled Ning Qing's sleeves anxiously. Ran. Ning Qing had talked without thinking and she now regretted it. Don't call me that. Qin Ran was thin and tall. She was slightly taller than Ning Qing, so she lowered her head slightly, her eyes cold. Am I very close to you? Ning Qing found her voice. She pinched her fingers and her joints protruded out. I also have my mistakes in this matter, but I only did it for you. Don't follow your grandfather's footsteps. You're still in first middle school, who will care about you other than me? I don't need your control. Qin Ran turned away. She narrowed her bloodshot eyes and raised her wild and dauntless eyebrows, then reached out to pat Ning Qing's shoulder. Other than my grandmother, nobody can control me. So, whether I live or die, attend whatever school, get admitted to a university or not, it's none of your business, okay? She smiled. She said it word by word in an unhurried fashion. After speaking, she turned and raised an eyebrow at Ning Wei and Mu Ying. The two immediately followed her. Ning Wei was also so anxious that she didn't bid farewell to Ning Qing. Outside the gate of the hospital, Ning Qing's face delicate makeup filled was ashen for a while, and even her fingertips were shaking. Lin Jinxian stood on the side and glanced in Qin Ran's direction. Just like the first time he had seen them, his eyes were dark and cold. His strength of character was intense. He had finished his business and had come to pick up Ning Qing as well as apologize to Qin Ran on the way. Qin Yu had urged him to leave quickly at night and he was also busy, so he had forgotten about Qin Ran. Aunt Ning, you still have to see Grandma Chen. I have matters to attend to, so I won't go up. Lin Jinxian smiled and paused. It stands to reason that I shouldn't care about your family affairs, but ultimately, it's not good to criticize your daughter like that, isn't it? 3. Without waiting for Ning Qing to answer, he nodded slightly towards her and turned around with his mobile phone. Lin Jinxian opened the car door and got in. When he put his hands on the steering wheel, he shuddered slightly and pointed his long fingertips on the steering wheel. His eyes narrowed. He didn't forget what Qin Ran had just said, the medicine that the state put into the laboratory. What did that mean? On the surface, it seemed to be a drug that had not yet been issued and the quantity was limited. Not many people could get it, then. He had checked Ning Qing's details 12 years ago when she married his father, and there were no particular details that had caught his attention. Hence, he hadn't cared much about the marriage. Thinking about it, he saw Qin Ran waiting with Ning Wei at the bus stop. Lin Jinxian stopped and lowered the window. His brow was born with indifference and loftiness, but his tone was gentle. Qin Ran, where are you guys going? I can send you all as atonement. His car was a black Maybach. His left hand rested on the steering wheel, and his slightly exposed wrist was wearing a Bulgari watch. Even his face was expensive. 6. Mu Ying couldn't see the brand, but she could distinguish the nobleness of it. She had never been in such a car. Subconsciously, Mu Ying glanced at Qin Ran. There's no need. Qin Ran lowered her head and played with her phone. She sat on the stool at the bus stop with her legs propped up casually. She didn't even raise her head. Lin Jinxian had experienced Qin Ran's indifference and lack of regard before. Okay. You, 3 ladies, be careful then, and send me a text message when you reach school, he said politely. Qin Ran didn't speak. Qin Ran ignored him. Still playing games. Very indifferent. Pay attention to safety. Lin Jinxian looked at the big boss with her legs propped up and laughed silently. He thought for a moment before driving off. When Lin Jinxian was gone, Mu Ying was curious for a long time before she said, "Cousin, was that your friend?" "He's part of the Lin family." Qin Ran continued to play her game, her voice calm. The Lin family. The super-rich Lin family that Ning Qing had married into. Mu Ying thought, is that the master of the Lin family? On the 12th road, Mu Ying said, "Cousin, first middle school's car is here. I'll send you there with Mum first. You're a girl. Wait for 6:23, I'll send you off first," Qin Ran said casually. Ning Qing stood at the entrance of the hospital. It was night and there were not many people coming and going. But she still felt embarrassed. After being blocked by Qin Ran, and then being preached by her stepson, she felt as though everyone was watching her. She bit her lip and lowered her head into the hospital quickly. Because she walked fast, she didn't notice that when she went up to the elevator, nobody was there. It was only 9 o'clock now. Although there were few people in the hospital at night, this floor was full of patients, family members of patients, doctors and nurses. After getting off the elevator, Ning Qing found something very wrong. It shouldn't be so quiet, there was almost no sound. Her pores almost exploded. There seemed to be something ahead, so Ning Qing looked up sharply. The first thing she saw was a man holding a mobile phone and looking at her with a smile on his face. The other side's coldness almost struck her. Ning Qing's gaze fell onto a man with a black figure. He was leaning against the wall, one hand in his pocket and the other playing with a thin scalpel. His fingers were white and clear under the light, and his joints were smooth and beautiful. The scalpel turned slowly in his hand. His face was lowered, but she could still see his beautiful features. Even though it was a strange occasion, Ning Qing was still stunned by him. No matter how dull she was, she also knew something was wrong. Ning Qing took a step back. She reached out, took out the mobile phone in her bag, and said cautiously, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Before she could do anything else, Lu Xiaoying pulled her phone away. Lu Xiaoying touched his earrings, turning the mobile phone around at his fingertips. He bent down halfway, took the mobile phone and patted Ning Qing's face. He tilted his head and smiled indifferently and relentlessly. "Master Wan, she's asking us a question." A few steps away, the guy playing with the scalpel stopped suddenly. Ning Qing did not dare to move and it felt like her heart had been caught onto something. The veins on her clenched fingers were almost exposed. This was the best hospital in Yuncheng, so they shouldn't be here at this time. Not to mention that this was a VIP ward. With 24-hour security monitoring. To be able to clear the area at this time and have the hospital cooperate as well. Ning Qing didn't know just when she had offended such a big person. When she had married into the Lin family, she had always been cautious and afraid of making mistakes. When Ning Qing was panicking, Cheng Wan looked up, his face still handsome, his eyes clear and narrowed. She seemed to have never seen such a person in Yuncheng. Ning Qing's fingers trembled violently, and the other party didn't even need to do anything. Just one glance over at her made it hard to breathe. As soon as the sentence came to an end, Lu Xiaoying sniggered. Cheng Wan looked down. After a while, he threw the scalpel to Lu Xiaoying and took out a cigarette from his pocket. Under the corridor lights, he was slender and his eyes were delicate. He still looked at Ning Qing and smiled. His voice was light, slow, and with an unknown ruthlessness. "Who did you call crazy just now?" Chapter 23. The Big Shot has approved. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Lu Xiaoying took the scalpel and weighed it with his hand. He laughed. Ning Qing came back to her senses. Wasn't this Qin Ran's friend? She knew that Qin Ran's friends were mostly shady. But they were really quite scary. She said, seemingly not so afraid anymore. But she was still tense because of the scalpel dangling in front of her. Remember to say sorry to her. Cheng Wan looked down. Too coincidentally, the elevator rang. Ning Qing's eyes glowed. She turned back sharply. She watched as the elevator door opened. The dean and director were standing inside. Dean Jiang, you are here. She turned around in a hurry as if she had found her savior. But what she didn't expect was that the dean didn't even look at her. He just looked at Cheng Wan and said politely, Master Wan, are you busy? Everyone is waiting. The blood on Ning Qing's body coagulated. Cheng Wan shook his head and his phone rang. He didn't look at the phone and his eyes were heavy. He looked at Ning Qing and repeated, remember my words. His tone was extremely icy. Ning Qing didn't dare to say something now and nodded quickly. Okay. Cheng Wan retracted his gaze, and even the smile on his face faded. He thought of Ning Qing's high-end custom-made clothes. Although the bag she was holding was not a limited edition, it was also tens of thousands. Not to mention the bracelet inlaid with diamonds on her wrist. It was probably 1 million and above. He then thought of Qin Ran's clothes again. They were clean, but they also looked old and average. Cheng Wan really didn't believe that the woman in front of him was really Qin Ran's mother. If I hear you say those 3 words to her again, do you understand the consequences? Cheng Wan lit a cigarette and smiled at her. Usually, he was very easygoing, but once he was serious, his beautiful peach blossom eyes were sharp and vicious. The entire corridor was shrouded in the low pressure of Master Wan, and even the dean didn't dare to interrupt. Ning Qing didn't know who Cheng Wan was, but she also knew that Cheng Wan wasn't easy to mess with. At this time, she couldn't even speak, so she just nodded. Lu Xiaoying retracted the knife, moved sideways and raised his chin towards her. Get out. Ning Qing didn't even dare to look back. She panted and trotted directly to Chen Shulan's ward. Her footsteps were unsteady as if she was fleeing. Lu Xiaoying snorted. Look at how scared she is of you. Cheng Wan glanced at him and raised his eyebrows. He was calm and composed as he asked, did I scare her? One Lu Xiaoying. Master Wan, the meeting room. The dean looked at Cheng Wan. He didn't ask what was going on and only asked him. His eyes were expectant. Master Wan wasn't interested, however, and said casually, let Lu Xiaoying explain the specific arrangements to you. I will go back first. Today was Cheng Wan's operation day that happened once a month. The other party was a rich man. After hearing that Cheng Wan wasn't in Beijing, he had quickly arranged the hospital in Yuncheng. Cheng Wan had come to discuss the operation arrangements and plans but didn't expect to meet Qin Ran again. Lu Xiaoying was pondering about Ning Qing, and when he heard that, he pointed to his nose in disbelief. You want me to talk? Cheng Wan flanked his side and bit a cigarette. His face was full of mist as he smirked. What about it? I see. Lu Xiaoying was a little hesitant. Cheng Wan didn't talk anymore. He reached out, pressed the elevator button, and went directly to the underground garage. He still drove the black Volkswagen today. Passing by the bus platform, the girl sitting on the temporary seat of the platform was playing a game. Her legs were propped up and she looked like a hooligan. She was probably waiting for the bus. He stopped the car and asked, where are you going? His voice was dull and somewhat indolent. Hearing the sound, Muing first looked up. The window lowered and she looked over. His good-looking face appeared, rendering Muing speechless as she stood there stupidly. Qin Ran also heard his voice. She finally looked up from her phone. Since the bus wasn't here yet, she thought about it and asked for Ning Wei's address first before repeating it to Cheng Wan. Get in. He laid his finger on the steering wheel. This is. Ning Wei was a little hesitant and didn't know what to say. Get in the car first. Qin Ran didn't know how long it would take for the bus to come. After opening the door, Ning Wei entered. Mu Ying watched as Qin Ran entered the front passenger seat and even handed them 2 mints without asking. She knew this was Qin Ran's friend. She sat a little slumped against the window of the car. She knew this car was a Volkswagen. Ning Wei lived in an old alley. There were no lights and it was very dark. The car couldn't even go in. Qin Ran came down to accompany them. Cheng Wan's car was parked in the alley. Cousin, was that your friend just now? Mu Ying couldn't help asking. I guess so. I'm working for him. Qin Ran put her hand in her pocket. Nothing more was said. Mu Ying opened her mouth and finally turned to the topic. Cousin, I'll go to first middle school with Mu Nan in a few days. Qin Ran nodded. Mu Ying was 3 years younger than her. She and Mu Nan were fraternal twins, and both had very good results. They were attending first middle school this year. The quality of middle schools in Ninghai village was really not good. Otherwise, Ning Wei wouldn't have taken them to Yuncheng. First middle school's first-grade building had just been completed, so this year's freshmen would start school later than before. They would start on September 15th, and there were still several days till then. How is it in first middle school? Mu Ying looked at Qin Ran and asked with some anticipation. Second cousin is also in the school, right? I heard Mum say that she's top 5 and plans to go to Peking University. Although Mu Ying had excellent grades in Ninghai village, she had never thought about entering Peking University. It was more probable for Mu Nan. All schools are the same, Qin Ran waved her hand and said vaguely. You will know when you go. Aunt, I'm heading back. Look out for your safety. Ning Wei didn't let Qin Ran enter the house either. They had only arrived today and their things were still messy. If Qin Ran entered, she would surely stay behind to help them clean up. When Qin Ran left, Mu Ying looked back at the direction the car was leaving and couldn't help but say, Mom, how does big cousin know so many friends? It seems that they are all rich. 1 to her, having a car meant you were rich. 2 Dad was in a vegetative state and there were a lot of daily care fees. Only her mother was working to make ends meet. Forget about a car, it was difficult for them to buy even clothes. Mu Ying and Qin Ran hadn't seen each other for more than a year, but she remembered that from an early age, only Qin Ran and her grandmother would buy her and her brother candies. They didn't look down on them like the rest of the family did. Your cousin's friends are all handsome, Ning Wei thought about it and said. Mu Ying didn't talk anymore. Thinking about finally coming to Yuncheng and going to first middle school, she was excited. Mom, our clothes are too small now. Can we buy new clothes? Ning Wei paused, then smiled. Okay, I'll take you shopping tomorrow. Mu Nan heard them arriving and opened the door to let them in. The Ning family weren't born ugly. Hence, Ning Wei's children were also as such. Mu Nan had a handsome face and was better looking than Mu Ying. Just that his face was cold. Upon hearing this, he said coldly, No, you can buy it for Mu Ying. My clothes aren't small. Ning Wei looked at his exposed ankle and frowned. Mu Nan. That's it. I'm going to study. Mu Nan turned back to his room and closed the door. Ning Wei looked around. All the things in the house had been packed by Mu Nan. Mom, why didn't you accept Aunt's money today? Mu Ying went to see her room with Ning Wei. Ning Wei shook her head. Your aunt is rich, but people should help the starving and not the poor. She's not obliged to help share our burdens. Besides, when your dad had a car accident, he would have passed on if it weren't for your aunt. How could I ask her for money? Ying, remember, Aunt has money, but it belongs to the Lin family. It's not easy being a stepmother, so you must refuse anything she gives you, okay? Mu Ying pursed her lips. Okay. Ning Wei sighed. She tidied the remaining things. Mu Ying helped her organize the things and was anxious to start school immediately. I heard that First Middle School's campus belle is second cousin. She plays the violin so well. Everyone outside of school knows that First Middle School has a campus king too. I think his surname is Su, and he knows second cousin too. One of her classmates' older sister was in First Middle School. During the summer vacation, she had heard her classmates talking and had even seen pictures of the school, so she knew how beautiful it was. Qin Ran walked back. She realized that Cheng Wan had been following them not far away. When she came back, he turned away and snuffed his cigarette. Qin Ran opened the door of the back seat. Cheng Wan glanced at her out of the corner of his eyes. He looked away and turned the key. He didn't drive back to school first but instead went to the hospital to pick up Lu Xiaoying. Lu Xiaoying first laid on the back of the front passenger seat and watched Qin Ran playing a game for a while, then he scratched his head. Sis. Qin Ran, why are you short of money? Qin Ran didn't want to answer him, so she looked up at him and raised her eyebrows indifferently. Lu Xiaoying was terrified for a second. You don't have to answer me, you really don't. While turning his head, he took out his mobile phone and prepared to play the game played by Qin Ran. He just opened the game when he saw a message he just received at the top of his mobile phone screen. His eyes widened and his volume rose. This bitch. Master Wan. That man. That big shot, he has taken our order. Screech, a harsh rubbing noise sounded. The car stopped suddenly. Chapter 24. Young Master Su's Suspicion, Familiar Violin. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Qin Ran was playing a game, and the sudden stop made her fingers slip, causing the character in her game to almost die. She looked up expressionlessly. Lu Xiaoying didn't think there was anything wrong with Cheng Wan's reaction. Boss, why do you think they suddenly took the order? I'm a little unaccustomed, aren't they? Lu Xiaoying wanted to say something, but he glanced at Qin Ran out of the corner of his eyes and suddenly stopped and looked around. Oh, look at how pretty the moon is today, ha 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 ha. 7. Qin Ran continued to look down at her mobile phone calmly. She didn't say anything, her expressions didn't change, and it was as if he hadn't heard anything. Lu Xiaoying was relieved and glanced at Cheng Wan. Cheng Wan slightly tilted his head and the street lights outside the car blurred his outline so that his expression couldn't be seen. However, the hand that was holding onto the steering wheel wasn't calm. It took several minutes for Cheng Wan to start the car again. On the way back to school, Lu Xiaoying didn't say anything. He just sat on the company pilot restlessly, looking around, touching his cell phone for a while, then pulling the seatbelt again. It was obvious that he was impatient. After arriving at school, Lu Xiaoying didn't say that he would send Qin Ran back. When Qin Ran returned, it was close to 10 o'clock, and self-study was in a while later. The dormitory door opened. Qin Ran went back and took a bath first. When she had brushed her hair and went out, Lin Siren had come back with a few books. There was also a girl behind her. The girl had short hair, black-rimmed glasses on the bridge of her nose, and her skin was very white. The eyes behind the lenses were large, black and shiny, and her head was lowered. She was very quiet, obedient, and beautiful. At first glance, she looked like a good student. Qin Ran glanced at her, then lowered her head and continued to wipe her hair. For she was wearing large short-sleeved pajamas, and the red ropes on her wrists were even more noticeable, making her complexion whiter and more delicate. Qin Ran, you're back. Lin Siren drew 2 papers on the table and handed them to the girl. Pan Mingyue. Pan Mingyue seemed to be thinking of something. Hearing the sound, she immediately turned around and took the paper. Thank you. Lin Siren smiled and said that it was nothing. She took her water bottle to the laundry room and went out with Pan Mingyue. That girl is my desk mate. She looks good, doesn't she? Pan Mingyue kept listening quietly. When she was about to go to her dormitory, she paused and took out a lollipop from her pocket. Lin Siren, can you bring this to your desk mate? Lin Siren held her bottle in her other hand. She took the lollipop and tilted her head. My desk mate is such a cool person, would she eat this? Pan Mingyue pursed her lips and seemed to laugh. She said, yes. At night, Lin Siren woke up to go to the toilet drowsily and saw a few rays of light through the gap of Qin Ran's bed curtain. On the bed, Qin Ran put down the book on the bedside, took off her backpack from the hook, and poured out the contents inside. She took out the black cell phone and opened it. The page still showed the red dots in the school medical office. Don't think about it, I've searched and didn't see any obvious traces, she said casually. Throwing the phone aside, she pulled the computer over while sitting cross-legged and lazily turned it on. Her fingers typed lines of code on the keyboard. The red dot was stubbornly lit on the side of the phone. After a few minutes, the red dot disappeared and the page reluctantly became the normal home page of the phone. The next day. In the morning, there were 4 lessons. English, Chinese, mathematics, and physics. Everyone was drowsy and had a headache. After the 4th class, Su Yaoguang took the physics paper from the office. He happened to see the English paper that Wu Yan had done 2 nights ago. Wu Yan was from Qin Ran's dormitory, and she was the English class representative. Mr. Gao, I've already told you that this student is a troublemaker. Look at her test paper, you can't find anyone else who scored a 0 for their papers. Do you know that your average English score is 3 points lower than the grade average? Li Erong chuckled. Her scornfulness was difficult to conceal. She had already said long ago that it would be too difficult to expect to influence Qin Ran. The average English score in class 3.9 was 3 points lower than the average grade, and 2 points less than the average English score in the worst class. She thanked herself for her persistence in the presence of President Su. Gao Yang pushed down his glasses, still smiling, without sadness or joy. Children of this age are indeed rebellious, so we have to teach them the correct values. Just keep pretending. Li Erong handed the paper to Wu Yan. Su Yaoguang knocked on the door. I'm here for the physics paper. Seeing him, Li Erong took back the sternness on her face. It's classmate Su. Your English is still the highest score in the school this time, 136 points. What they did was a series of 10 papers produced by the 10 schools themselves, which was very difficult. It was also said that students who had just entered the 3rd year of high school shouldn't be lax. First middle school's average score was 69. The first place scored 136, the second place 129, and the third place scored only 117 points. Su Yaoguang said hello and took out the new paper. Wu Yan walked slowly. Su Yaoguang paused as she passed by. Li Erong especially pulled out Qin Ran's paper and put it on the top. The 0 she drew was a little rough and very conspicuous. He saw it at a glance. English multiple choice questions occupied 115 points, which was a very high score. She had done the answer card. Even if she stepped on it with her feet, shouldn't there be at least one correct in a dozen questions? One Su Yaoguang himself had several questions that he couldn't figure out either. Could you show me her answer card? Su Yaoguang asked. His voice was cool, and he was polite and indifferent. Qin Rance. Wu Yan didn't expect Su Yaoguang to talk to her. She blushed and said awkwardly, oh. Okay. She immediately handed Qin Rance's answer card to Su Yaoguang. Su Yaoguang put the physics paper on his desk, then picked up his English paper and started to look at Qin Rance's answer card. Xiao Sheng was still waiting for Su Yaoguang to go to dinner. He was sitting at his desk, stretching his legs into the aisle and playing basketball in his hands. He stretched his head and smiled suddenly. No way, did she score 0 again? Hurry up, young Master Su, give me her paper so I can mock her later. Qin Ran was usually cold and dry, and since she had just been selected as the campus belle, her reputation had spread quickly. In each class, there were many boys dangling at the window of class 3.9. But she was a flower above all others and didn't care about anyone. In the class, she only talked to Lin Siren and Xiao Sheng. Some outsiders wanted to provoke Qin Ran but forgot about it at the thought of Xiao Sheng. Who didn't know that in first middle school, Xiao Sheng was a rich second generation, and the newly built teaching building just completed by the school had been donated by his family. Su Yaoguang handed the paper to him, his brows furrowed. The paper was fully written, yet it was still 0 points. Su Yaoguang thought for a moment and thought it wasn't right. Come on, Qin Yu is waiting for us. Xiao Sheng pressed the paper under the book and patted the basketball again, urging him. They had agreed to listen to Qin Yu practice the violin, which was said to be a new song. When referring to Qin Yu, Su Yaoguang paused. He didn't think about Qin Ran anymore and his pace accelerated. When Qin Ran went to the school medical office, Lu Zhaoying had finished sending the last patient. Then, he turned his head and scratched his hair. Master Wan, why do you think the order was accepted? Cheng Wan wasn't sleeping today, which was a rare sight. He leaned on the sofa with a laptop on his legs. Leaning slightly on the back of the sofa, his face was lazy and his long eyelashes were down, like a row of brushes. On the computer in front of him was a pile of tedious data, and he seemed to be thinking deeply. No, I heard that this person hasn't taken orders for more than a year. Lu Zhaoying stood up suddenly and wanted to continue talking, the order. But what are we having for lunch today? He was very stiff and changed the subject very bluntly. Cheng Wan closed the laptop computer calmly. Qin Ran glanced sideways, squinting her apricot eyes slightly. She chuckled indifferently when she saw Lu Zhaoying's eyes widening. Fish. Lu Zhaoying immediately took the car key. Oh yeah, old Wang just asked me to get the ingredients for the evening. After eating lunch, half of the lunchtime was already over. Qin Ran washed her hands and took her jacket and left. The sun was shining. She had to put on her peaked cap as she passed the art building. The sound of the violin came out of the open window on the second floor, and it sounded familiar. Qin Ran paused. Her eyes were cold as she reached down and pressed her cap, looking towards the second floor. Chapter 25. Master Wan. Too close together. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, the second floor, art practice room. Qin Yu held the violin in her hand, her head slightly tilted, and her eyebrows furrowed slightly. The violin sound was slightly gloomy, which was very different from the usual sound that Qin Yu made. Su Yaoguang lowered his eyes. It was obvious that his expression wasn't the same anymore. He leaned on the side of the violin and knocked his fingers unconsciously. He was surrounded by people from the student union who had come to listen to Qin Yu practice the violin. Qin Yu had said today that she wanted to practice a new song, so they had all come ready to record on their mobile phones. The violin sounded for a minute and suddenly came to an end. Su Yaoguang's eyes were dizzy and didn't know what to say. Seeing that there wasn't any movement, he turned his head and softened his voice when he talked to Qin Yu. His gaze fell on the violin in Qin Yu's hand. Why did you stop? Qin Yu held the violin in her hand tightly. She smiled brightly. This has not been practiced well. I usually secretly practice it, so it's not perfect. I will perform for you when I practice it a few more times. Everyone in the student council said that it was fine and wanted to keep her going as she was playing very well. Su Yaoguang stood silently and didn't speak. His eyebrows were warm, but he was cold. No one dared to approach him except Xiao Sheng and a few others. One, he had some knowledge of the violin and had heard it. Qin Yu's violin melody was very cryptic. It's okay, you can practice slowly. He stood upright and, although there was no smile on his face, his voice was still gentle. I won't disturb you, then. Qin Yu watched as Su Yaoguang left. She pulled a chair and sat down. The student union basically left with Su Yaoguang, and there were only a few girls left. Why not continue? The baby-faced girl didn't hear the crypticness but could feel that the violin melody was really good this time. I thought it sounded good. Yeah, Wu Yan managed to mingle with Qin Yu's group and quickly said. Qin Yu leaned on the chair and shook her head when she heard the words. She lowered her eye. The violin sheet was short and messy. She had tidied for the whole night only to remember it vaguely. She could barely play it, but there was no emotion and she couldn't get engrossed. While others couldn't hear it, Su Yaoguang had definitely heard it. It was very obscure, so she simply stopped. Because the tone of the whole score was very grand and had a strong personal touch, Qin Yu didn't know what kind of person could write such a score. She wondered. Wu Yan went to the window and prepared to open the curtains, but saw Qin ran downstairs. Why is she here? Wu Yan's distasteful tone was quite unfriendly, with a stinging hostility. This new campus belle had a good reputation with boys, but the girls had been gossiping about her, especially because she had been kicked out of school for a year because of fighting. The baby-faced girl glanced over and saw Xiao Xing chasing Qin Ran, and her fingers squeezed unconsciously. Why is Xiao Xing playing with her? Well, Xiao Xing is mocking her. Wu Yan gloated. You know, she sent her English paper today and scored 0. She's even the campus belle. Qin Yu, you got 117, it's so much higher than her score. Qin Yu was originally unhappy because of that violin score. When she heard what Wu Yan said, she was inexplicably in a good mood. She smiled a little. Okay, why are you guys comparing that? There's nothing to compare. For *** downstairs. Qin Ran wanted to continue to listen, but the music voice had stopped, making her uncertain. Too coincidentally, Xiao Sheng and Su Yaoguang had come down. She thought about it and went on to the classroom. Xiao Sheng chased and mocked her. Qin Ran lowered her peaked cap, took the headset out of her pocket and put it on herself in a cool fashion. Xiao Sheng leaned closer to her, amplified his voice, and continued to taunt her. Qin Ran reached out and pressed the headset. She tilted her head, then stretched out a thin white finger to make a "shut up" gesture. Her pair of cold eyes stared at Xiao Sheng. Xiao Sheng. He stepped back silently. Qin Ran continued lazily to the teaching building. In the classroom, Xiao Sheng pulled out Qin Ran's test paper from the book and handed it to her. Leaning on the table in front of Qin Ran and chatting with Lin Siren, Qin Ran usually ignored him. She sat down while leaning halfway against the wall, taking her extracurricular books from the table with one hand, and a lollipop on her other hand. Throwing the book to the table, she slowly peeled off the sugar paper and put it into her mouth. She continued leaning against the wall and lazily flipping through the book. Her side eyebrows were raised deliberately. Aren't you childish, eating candy? Xiao Xing couldn't hold back. Qin Ran turned another page casually. Maybe she was in a good mood, so she wasn't as closed and cold as before. She said slowly, "What's it to you? Get lost." Xiao Xing touched his nose. He sat back at his seat, laid on the table, thought about it, and poked at Su Yaoguang who was doing the exercises. "Young Master Su, do you want to go to the store after class?" Su Yaoguang was indifferent, but he was willing to do it for his brother and thought that Xiao Sheng was probably hungry. Yeah. In the evening, Qin Ran continued to go to the school medical office. This time, Lu Zhaoying was somewhat normal. He had a patient, so Qin Ran ignored him and went to the kitchen to cook today's dinner. When she came out, Lu Xiaoying was on a phone call outside. As Qin Ran took a paper towel from the table and wiped her hands, her eyes fell on the assortment of medicine cabinets. There were a lot more medicines than when she had first seen them and didn't seem like a normal store. She didn't care that there were several more medicines, and her eyes only fell on the sleeping pills. Cheng Wan was looking at the computer. Seeing this, he didn't think much about it. He came over with the key to the medicine cabinet. He reached out to open the door of the medicine cabinet, leaned slightly to the side, and put his fingers on the sleeping pills. His fingers were long and casual. "Did you finish the sleeping pills?" He had a very slow voice. It sounded lazy and slow and made her relax. "Yeah." Qin Ran nodded directly. Cheng Wan lowered his head again and counted 10 pills seriously. Then, he went to get a paper bag. The medicine cabinet was just right behind Lu Xiaoying's desk so that he could reach it with a kick. Cheng Wan reached over Qin Ran to get the bag. Qin Ran only smelled a mild mint flavor. It was warm and calm, making her want to be close. A warm breath fell to her side and it burned a little. Qin Ran calmly took a step back. Cheng Wan was thinking about the pile of data and didn't think anything was wrong. They were very close. He fetched the paper bag and turned to the side. He put the medicine in the bag and didn't dare look more, but the glaring hot scene replayed in his mind. She wasn't wearing a school uniform, only wearing a white shirt. Her neckline was a little crooked, and her collarbone was faintly exposed. On that shoulder, a red tattoo revealed the tip of the iceberg. This red color lined her skin and made it seem even whiter, colliding with her strong sense of brightness and beauty. He didn't know who had tattooed her. 1 inch done. Cheng Wan didn't glance over. He handed the folded medicine bag to Qin Ran and couldn't help but say when he saw her happy expression, "Don't eat too many." Thank you." Qin Ran took it. Lu Xiaoying, who had gone out to answer the call, came back and hurriedly said, "Master Wan, is your computer ready?" "Nearly." Cheng Wan threw the computer to Lu Xiaoying and wasn't very patient. "Look at it yourself." 1 inch, damn it, they're urging us." Lu Xiaoying looked at the computer page that still had a large number of strange numbers. "Okay, I'll go ask Elder Su. There aren't many technical people here." He left with the computer. Qin Ran took her coat and was going to leave, but when she saw how anxious Lu Xiaoying was, she stopped, turned back and said, "Actually." Chapter 26. Sister, which school do you want to go? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios Bedo.m. When Lu Xiaoying was fiddling with the computer, Qin Ran looked at the computer page, which was filled with a bunch of data. The computer wasn't broken, it had been hacked by someone. The hacking method was very advanced and only experts could see it. Someone was hacking their computer to capture data. Obviously, Cheng Wan's computer firewall was designed by a special person, so it would take a while for the other party to crack it. Finding Principal Su would delay too much time, and he might not know what to do either. Lu Xiaoying was in full swing, holding the computer and going out without even eating the dishes on the table. Qin Ran thought for a while and held her mouth. It was Cheng Wan who rolled his sleeves and sat down to eat dinner. His brows were gentle as he asked Qin Ran politely, "Do you want to eat together?" Qin Ran shook her head. She was troubled and absent-minded when she put on her coat and walked out. Behind her, Cheng Wan glanced at her and frowned slightly. He slowly lifted the fishbone from his hands. As soon as she left the school hospital, Qin Ran's cell phone rang. It was her aunt. Her voice brought a smile and she was obviously very happy. Ran, your mother and your sister are coming to my house for dinner tonight, so you should come here too." "Okay, I'll be there at night. I might be late, so eat first and don't wait for me," Qin Ran said and turned towards the bathroom quickly. It might be too late for Lu Xiaoying to find Principal Su. He was so anxious, and the person that Principal Su would find later might only be a person who studied computing. By the time he realized that the computer had been under attack, the information inside would have already been leaked. Qin Ran wasn't a nosy person, but she thought of Cheng Wan's order. She returned to the dormitory and no one was inside. She took out her computer, sat at the table, and put her hands on the keyboard to start it. The computer desktop was still very clean, but today the background image wasn't a filled desert, but the ocean, with no other icon. Cheng Wan's computer was linked to the school medical office's private network. Finding the IP address was easy. Half the screen of the computer was full of jumping characters, mixed with a lot of zeros and ones. The speed they were jumping at was very fast. Under normal circumstances, even this high-speed computer would slowly stagnate, but her computer seemed unaffected and still moved quickly. The dormitory was filled with sounds of doors opening and people talking. It was very noisy. Mingyue, wait for me, I'll get a carton of milk. Outside the bedroom, Lin Siren trotted to the bedroom quickly in order to not let Pan Mingyue wait. There was someone in the bedroom door, and she was surprised when she pushed the door open. Qin Ran, why are you in the bedroom? Pan Mingyue was behind Lin Siren and heard the voice, so she looked in the direction of Qin Ran. Qin Ran was almost done. She cut to a game screen without changing her expression when they came in. Lin Siren took out 3 boxes of milk on the table, gave Qin Ran one, Pan Mingyue another, and came over. Oh, Ran, you also play this. A lot of people in our class play this. Last year, Xiao Xing also missed class just to go to the internet cafe to enter some league. Old Gao even punished him to clean the toilet for a week. Old Gao was their class teacher Gao Yang. Qin Ran said, and looked intently at the screen. Her hands moved quickly and sharply. Lin Siren didn't really understand the game, but just looking at Qin Ran, she felt that the game was very simple. How was it as difficult as those people in the class had described it? Pan Mingyue stood on the side. She inserted the straw into the milk and drank with a small sip. Aren't you going to get the papers from Teacher Gao's office? She whispered. Lin Siren immediately thought about it and jumped up. I almost forgot. Qin Ran, see you. She pulled Pan Mingyue out. And closed the bedroom door. Qin Ran got rid of the game page. She switched the page, took care of it, and then kept the computer to get ready to head to Ning Wei's place. At the same time, a small corner in the country. The curtains in the room were pulled, and the inside was very dark. There was only the fluorescence light from a computer, and there was a strange expression on a person's face. The man sitting in front of the computer was Luo Saihu. He was chubby, slightly fat, and wore glasses. He had a deep outline, like a mixed race, and his hands moved at a fast speed. Comment snap, the computer suddenly turned black and the room fell into darkness. What the hell? The man behind had a scar on his face, and when he opened his mouth, he looked like a writhing, cruel cricket. He was tall, broad, and his evil tendencies seemed extremely heavy. There was darkness in his eyes that could make people tremble. My attack has been stopped by someone. Luo Saihu rubbed his beard and was bewildered. Scarface frowned. Few people could stop his attack. The higher-ups of Huameng are meddling in this. Huameng has its own symbol. This matter is not Huameng's. Luo Saihu shook his head. Scarface was impatient. Who is it then, if it's not them? Luo Saihu continued shaking his head. When Qin Ran arrived at Ning Wei's house, Ning Qing and Qin Yu had arrived long ago. The dishes were on the table and they were eating. Mu Nan saw that she was here, put down his bowl and chopsticks and moved a chair for her in silence. Ning Qing waited impatiently and gave her a glance. You clearly ended class with your sister, why are you so late? Qin Ran hung her backpack on the back of the chair, greeted Ning Wei and sat down. Her words were dull and concise. I was busy. You. Ning Qing tightened her hand on the chopsticks. Qin Yu quickly placed some vegetables on Ning Qing's plate. Mom, don't you like this the most, and sister didn't mean it, right? She turned her head and looked at Qin Ran, smiling sweetly. Good girl. Ning Qing smiled. She reached for Qin Yu's bowl and filled it with a bowl of soup. Your aunt's soup is delicious, try it. Ning Qing had always spoken sweetly to Qin Yu and didn't dare to say anything heavy to her. Qin Yu was outstanding, and Lin Jinxian, Lin Wan, and Lin Qi all valued her. Thanks to Qin Yu, Ning Qing's position in the Lin family was consolidated. Ning Qing lived too clearly. She knew exactly what she wanted and what was good for her. Moreover, not to mention the Lin family, with Qin Yu's current development, it wouldn't be bad in the future. It's delicious. Qin Yu smiled. Ning Qing scooped soup for her again. Yes, your aunt is very good at cooking. If you want to drink it, I'll get her to stew it. She talked to Qin Yu and ignored Qin Ran. Qin Yu smiled. She raised her eyebrows and looked at Qin Ran calmly. The expression on Qin Ran's face didn't change, and she didn't speak. She chewed on a pork rib slowly. When they were young, their neighbor had brought her lots of books. She had stopped Qin Yu from taking her books and made her cry. When an adult came, it became such that she had stolen Qin Yu's stuff. The adults persuaded her incessantly to let her younger sister be since she was younger. After a few more times, Ning Qing and Qin Hanqiu both became impatient with her. Neighbors had always said that she was smarter than Qin Yu and was a genius, but was Qin Yu stupid? No. Later, when she got older, she understood that the crying child always won. For Ning Wei picked up a rib again for Qin Ran. Mu Ying, who was sitting next to Ning Wei, finally found a chance to speak. Second cousin, I'm going to first middle school soon. I heard Mum say that you're in the top class, then your results must be very good. What school are you going to go? She wants to be admitted to Peking University. Before Qin Yu could speak, Ning Qing said gently. She wants to go to the same university as her brother. Peking University was the best university in the country. Almost every high school senior yearned to enter the school, and only a few students from Yuncheng were accepted per year. Mu Ying's eyes were envious. Second cousin is amazing. Qin Yu had no appetite. Ning Wei's house was small and messy, and her things were dirty. Except for drinking a few mouthfuls of soup, she didn't even move her chopsticks. Upon hearing this, she looked at Qin Ran awkwardly and said with a smile on her face, "Don't keep talking about me. My sister is also a senior. By the way, sister, which school do you want to go to?" Chapter 27. Mysterious Hacker. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Because of this sentence, the room fell into a weird atmosphere. Ning Qing lowered her head and picked up her chopsticks to eat quickly. Her face was slightly stiff and she didn't speak. Mu Ying was embarrassed. She looked at Qin Yu and then at Qin Ran, not knowing what to say. Mu Nan didn't even lift his head. Qin Yu seemed to finally react and stuck her tongue out. "Mom, did I say something wrong?" 3" No. Hearing Qin Yu's voice, Ning Qing smiled. Qin Ran sat on her stool with her legs crossed, as calm as ever, and she looked up slightly and said slowly, "I'm going to Beijing." Note that she said that she wanted to go to Beijing, not Peking University. It was just that the people at the table didn't notice. All of them were a little stunned. Even Mu Nan held his chopsticks and looked at Qin Ran thoughtfully. Qin Yu sniggered and ate a piece of vegetable. While eating, she said with a smile, "Oh, so sister wants to go to Peking University too. Add oil then, I'll wait for you there." Snap, Ning Qing finally couldn't bear it. She threw down her chopsticks and pressed Qin Ran. Peking University. Do you think it's so easy for you? Qin Ran, let me tell you, next year, no matter what school you can go to, you have to go. She had a thin face, especially since there was such a big difference between the Lin and Ning families. In front of the Lin family, she was even more careful. That was why she couldn't rely on Qin Hunxiu and had to take Qin Ran to Yuncheng for high school. Ning Qing could endure it for 1 year, but if Qin Ran really wanted to go to Peking University, then didn't it mean she would have to stay a few more years? Ning Qing absolutely would not allow this to happen. Qin Ran took another rib, her movement casual. She glanced at Ning Qing and smiled. You don't have to worry about that. I don't need you to control me. Who else but me? I've been by myself for the past 10 years. Qin Ran interrupted her, looked up, and said indifferently and dauntlessly, don't take grandmother's plate suddenly at this time. Do I need to remind you which matter you helped me out in when I came to Yuncheng? Ning Qing's face was stiff. Her face turned blue. She was suddenly embarrassed. She couldn't control it if Qin Ran wanted to go to school. Qin Ran didn't take any of the things she had prepared for her. She had let Qin Ran stay in the Lin family's house, but she didn't. Her daughter had changed so much from the past. The information she had dug out was correct. Qin Ran was really a thorn in one's heart. Now that Ning Qing remembered it, Qin Ran retracted her gaze and propped her legs rudely and casually. It's good that you can remember it. Only her grandmother could control her. Ning Qing was a little embarrassed, but she was also angry. Qin Yu had never shamed her like that before. Fine, you are the ancestor. You are so good, but when you can't pass the exam, don't come begging me and the Lin family to arrange a college for you. I won't help you, Duviko, thank you. Qin Ran was very sincere. Ning Wei coughed. She clamped a piece of fish without bones for Qin Ran. Ran, that's enough. Qin Ran lowered her head and plucked the fish, forming an okay sign with her hands. In addition to her grandmother, she also respected Ning Wei more than Ning Qing. After dinner, Qin Yu and Ning Qing both decided to go back. Ning Wei's house was old and shabby. Qin Yu, who was used to living in the villa, felt it was really disgusting. 1-inch auntie, second cousin, I will send you down. Mu Ying stood up immediately. Qin Yu glanced at her and said indifferently, thank you. Mu Ying was flattered. You're welcome. Before leaving, Ning Qing passed by Qin Ran. I'll apologize to you about what happened last time. I went overboard. I just don't want you to end up like your grandfather. Listen to me and I will spend some money to help you get a normal university. Qin Ran said nothing. Ning Qing turned to catch up with Qin Yu. Qin Ran, you really disappoint me. Qin Ran held a mug with strawberries printed on it, which was the special teacup she used at her aunt's house. She remembered that Ning Qing was talking about what had happened at the hospital yesterday and lowered her head to take a sip of water. She didn't expect Ning Qing to apologize. She stood by the window and looked downstairs, a little embarrassed. After a while, she looked at the layout of the room with her glass of water. It was very small. A call was made to the air conditioning installation company to install the air conditioner tomorrow. Qin Ran returned to school before Ning Wei could nag her. At first middle school. Lu Xiaoying took the computer to Principal Su's office. Principal Su thought for a moment and found him a person. This is Feng Ci. He majors in computer science at Peking University. President Su introduced the two. Now he has started a company in partnership with others and developed his own software. Mr. Lu. Feng Ci had a stiff face, the hand he stretched out was slender and clean, with a thick layer of callus. His eyes were deep, his lips thin, and his nose bridge high. He was handsome and was quite young, but already had the aura of a successful elite person. Feng Xiai knew that President Su was trying to draw connections for him. Lu. In Peking University, he had also pondered the situation in Beijing in the past 2 years. If he was really part of the Lu family, then he really owed Principal Su a big favor. Feng Xiai brought a USB flash drive and repair tools. First, he turned on Lu Xiaoying's computer. How is it, can it be repaired in a short time? Lu Xiaoying came over, the earrings in his left ear shining. Feng Xiai frowned slightly. He checked the computer several times but found no major problems. Feng Xiai opened the settings and entered a large series of codes. A bunch of data that normal people couldn't understand jumped and he stayed on the page. Mr. Lu, your computer has indeed been attacked, Feng Xiai said, quoting his historical records. The other party has left a mark. It was probably a hacker. Black Eagle. Lu Xiaoying snorted. Is our data record still there? Yes. Feng Xiai looked at the computer with an unpredictable expression. Someone has helped you counterattack. What? Lu Xiaoying found something was strange now. Speaking of Black Eagle, he had heard of him before while on a certain mission. This man was a famous hacker. As long as he was given money, he could do good and bad things. The police had been watching him for a while now already. But he hid well without revealing anything. There were thousands of hackers, but they were very advanced among hackers, and even rarer. The Black Eagles in China could rank at least in the top 10. So, after hearing that the attacker was Black Eagle, Lu Xiaoying had guessed that a bunch of data they had investigated was probably gone. Unexpectedly, Feng Xiai had told him otherwise. A hacker helped them counterattack. A hacker who could fight with the Black Eagle. Do you know who it is? Lu Xiaoying looked serious. Feng Xiai shook his head. The other party left no clue. Lu Xiaoying looked up with his head full of thoughts and stood up. Cheng Wan was already outside. He was tall, his head bowed down, and his figure leaned lazily against the door frame. Have you fixed it? Lu Xiaoying said, Master Wan, you came in the nick of time. The data is fine, I'll send them over first. But this matter has become more complicated. A god who refuses to be named has helped us. Do you know who it is? Looking at Lu Xiaoying's attitude, Feng Xiai looked at Cheng Wan. Lu Xiaoying had called him, Master Wan. He paused. If Lu Xiaoying's identity was right, this Master Wan was. Chapter 28. Code Name Q. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Feng Xiai graduated from First Middle School. Back in the days, Principal Su had taught them mathematics and even held private enrichment classes for him when he was participating in mathematics competitions. He could somewhat be considered Principal Su's disciple. He hadn't put much thought into it, and only until he started up his own firm in the capital city did he realize how this status really came in handy. He slowly learned more about Principal Su's status and identity as well. There was only one family in the whole of the capital city that could have Principal Su address as young Master Lu. As for this Master Wan, Feng Xiai did not know much about him. Although he was a relatively big shot in his own city, the capital city was full of people from the high society, and he was nowhere close to that league. Even with Principal Su's name, he could only get access to general information such as finding out who were the people he couldn't afford to offend. Feng Xiai looked away. Cheng Wan was leaning against the doorframe and had his eyes on the computer screen. His expression was unreadable. About a minute later, he looked up and said firmly, not too sure, there haven't been any suspicious parties yet. Based on Lu Xiaoying's understanding of Cheng Wan, he'd probably been able to go through the entire mental list of people he knew in that 1 minute. Then that's too bad. Lu Xiaoying felt it was a pity. He turned to the computer screen, churned out some data and sent it out to the relevant parties. Seeing that they seemed to have unfinished business to discuss, Feng Xiai politely excused himself. Lu Xiaoying leaned back in his seat and smiled as he fiddled with his ear stud. Hold up, we are about to leave too. Let's exchange our WeChat account details. Feng Xiai wasn't expecting these young masters to be so friendly. The three of them walked downstairs together and Cheng Wan led the way with both hands in his pockets. The sun had not set completely, and it cast long shadows of the school buildings. He walked slowly and quietly, without the youthfulness of the first middle school students. But judging by the girls who only dared steal glances at him but not approach him directly, one could tell that the pride that ran deep in his veins was unmistakable. Lu Xiaoying was consistently about half a step behind Cheng Wan as he spoke to Feng Xiai. Not too far away, Lin Siren and Pan Mingyue were going to the dean's office together to get some scripts. Lu Xiaoying knew Lin Siren as an acquaintance, he'd seen her a few times at club activities. "Schoolmate Lin, where's your deskmate?" Lu Xiaoying called out to her. He then caught sight of Pan Mingyue and smiled. "Hey, do you always make friends based on looks?" Lin Siren and Qin Ran had bumped into Lu Xiaoying a few times. He'd even bought them milk tea before. "BDNVL.M, she's busy." Lin Siren responded with the scripts held tightly in her hands. Cheng Wan hesitated for a while before nodding slightly towards Lin Siren and then taking his leave. Feng Xiai was walking towards the school's main gate. Seeing the two young masters taking interest in speaking to a girl, he wondered who she was. He walked over. Lin Siren was a little uncomfortable. She quietly said, "Mingyue, let's get going. Why have you moved into the dormitory to stay on campus?" A low voice stopped her mid-sentence. Lin Siren was a little shocked. She glanced at the smart-looking Feng Xiai opposite her and then turned towards Pan Mingyue. Something felt wrong. Pan Mingyue was holding onto the scripts with one hand and grabbing Lin Siren's hand with the other. Her huge glistening eyes were beautiful. "The workload for third-year students is heavy. It's more convenient for me to stay on campus." Pan Mingyue tightened her grip on the scripts and answered coldly. "Mingyue." Feng Xiai furrowed his brows, wanting to say more. But Pan Mingyue pulled Lin Siren aside and made a move to leave. "I'm going to distribute the scripts." Feng Xiai stood on the spot for a while longer before deciding to leave. Pan Mingyue only slowed down her footsteps when she was certain that Feng Xiai had turned around to leave too. Lin Siren looked at Pan Mingyue in shock and excitement. "Mingyue, you actually know Feng Xiai? He used to be the man of the moment in our school." Lin Siren was from the affiliated stream in junior middle school. Back when she was there, she'd heard of Lin Jinxian and Feng Xiai, the two big names in the senior middle school. "I heard that Feng Xiai and Lin Jinxian are both starting up a firm now." Lin Siren gossiped with her volume down. "You know, Qin Yu from your class is Lin Jinxuan's younger sister." Back then, both of them had Qin Yu's back, and the influence she had was unparalleled. "Moreover, you know that our mayor's family name is Feng, right? I really never expected you to know Feng Xiai, but well, everyone who mixes with him is somewhat outstanding." One Pan Mingyue shook her head. "I'm a distant relative of the Feng family, but I'm not close to Feng Xiai. I'd ever put up at his place before, and I know that they're all outstanding, but I can't be compared to them." "Why can't you? You're the second in the whole school. You're always just a few points behind Su Yaoguang, but tens of points ahead of the third person." "Mingyue, don't look down on yourself this way. Before my desk mate came along, there were even debates about whether you or Qin Yu were the rightful school belle. But ever since Qin Ran joined the school, posts like this had stopped appearing." Pan Mingyue suddenly smiled as her gaze looked distant. "My results used to be terrible. I got a single-digit score for mathematics." "Don't lie to me." Lin Siren wouldn't buy it. Pan Mingyue's mathematics grades were only second to Su Yaoguang. Mathematics wasn't like other subjects, it was based on practice and prior experience. Given her outstanding results now, how could she ever be bad at it? Pan Mingyue smiled without explaining further. She and Lin Siren parted ways at the foot of the stairs. Lin Siren looked at Pan Mingyue's back view. She knew Pan Mingyue because of a competition, they were desk mates in the competition preparation class. She always felt that Pan Mingyue exuded an inexplicable air of sorrow. They'd known each other for 2 years, and Lin Siren had never heard Pan Mingyue mention her parents. A few days later, Qin Ran rested her head on the desk between classes. It was noisy outside and she couldn't keep her eyes closed. Eventually, she rested her chin on her palm unhappily. Lin Siren distributed everybody's scripts and finally handed the last one to Qin Ran. 6 marks. Better than the previous time. Lin Siren consoled herself. We're welcoming new students in school today, it'll be pretty bustling. Lin Siren saw that Qin Ran looked a little flushed and unhappy and asked in concern, Ran, are you unwell? She knew that Qin Ran was working part-time outside. It was pouring so heavily last night and she didn't have an umbrella, she must have been drenched on the way back from the milk tea store. I'm fine. Qin Ran sounded a little down. She turned sideways and leaned against the wall instead. Lin Siren was a little worried for her. She got another classmate to bring some flu tablets over and made sure Qin Ran ate one. Qin Ran felt even more drowsy after having the medicine, but she still couldn't sleep. The sounds of the new students from downstairs buzzed in her head. She put on her earphones and turned the volume up. After hours, she finally made it through the whole day of school. It was crowded everywhere, except for the school doctor's office in the corner. Qin Ran heaved a sigh of relief. In the school doctor's office. As it was the first day of school for the new students, the doctor's office was unusually empty. It was nice and quiet. Lu Xiaoying had his laptop on his lap and went onto a site with a full black background. He was chatting with somebody online, and the symbols used were rather strange. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to make out what they were. He was casually having a conversation. Until the other party sent a reply that almost caused him to choke. Master Wan, Lu Xiaoying widened his eyes at the screen and stammered, I think there's a clue. Cheng Wan was looking through some patient's documents with a fountain pen in his hand. He was completely calm and hadn't even raised his head. Why the fluster, shoot. Based on Flat Face's investigation, the person who helped us out goes by code name Q. 1 Bam. Chapter 29. Something skipped in his heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Cheng Wan slammed his fountain pen into the table. The person who just told Lu Xiaoying not to get flustered had lost his cool too. He quietly shifted the pen aside and reached for a cigarette, but did not light it. When he'd calmed down, a fog seemed to mask his face like a veil. He tipped his chin up slightly. Are you sure? That person doesn't seem that helpful. Flat Face already got it checked. He specially looked into the case of the 7 undergraduates who'd lost contact 3 months ago, the traces are very similar. Lu Xiaoying found it unusual too. With one hand resting on the keyboard, he turned around to look at Cheng Wan. It's unlikely for anyone else to be able to clamp down on Black Eagle, I think it must be that Q. You really don't know who that is, Lo. Cheng Wan spun a lighter in his hands and looked through the glass pane as a girl walked towards the office door. Her cheeks were unusually red and brought out the paleness in the rest of her face. She seemed to be dragging her feet restlessly, and her zip went all the way up despite it being pretty warm and humid outside. In her state now, she seemed a lot less distant and unapproachable. She always seemed a little cold usually. But today, as she came teary-eyed, she seemed a little more delicate. Cheng Wan kept the cigarette between his lips and did not say a thing. Lu Xiaoying shut his laptop and kept his words when he saw Qin Ran coming. Qin Ran knew what they'd been talking about before she came and that they were somewhat avoiding her. But she wasn't bothered, especially with this headache now. She went to the pantry first. Cheng Wan kept his documents and knocked on the tabletop. "You're sick." Qin Ran slowly made her way further into the kitchen. She sounded weak. "A little." "Qin Ran, how did you fall ill?" "Come, have a rest here, I'll take your temperature." Lu Xiaoying immediately stood up and let Qin Ran take the seat. He went to get a thermometer for her. "It's no big deal. I took some meds in the morning, I'll get cooking first," she casually said. Well, she was still as cool as usual. "No," Lu Xiaoying shook his head. "You're already sick, don't put up a front. Sit down first." Cheng Wan got up and let her have the couch seat. "Lu Xiaoying. Get NU Hotel to send some food here." Lu Xiaoying was taken aback to see that Cheng Wan had given up his couch seat. But he went ahead to make the call anyway. "Don't head to the canteen anymore, it's too crowded." Cheng Wan got a thermometer and handed it to her. "Take your temperature first." Qin Ran didn't think a fever was anything to fuss over. It wasn't as if she broke a limb anyway. She took her temperature, 39.5 degrees Celsius. Cheng Wan knitted his brows together and quickly prepared the 4 bag to put her on a drip. He then got her a glass of warm water and even added some syrup, as ill people usually felt very dry in the mouth. The couch was very comfortable to lean back in. She drank the sweetened water and felt drowsy as the sounds of Cheng Wan flipping his documents faded into the background. He could hear slow steady breathing from his side. Cheng Wan put his documents down and turned to look at her instead. Perhaps it was because she was sick, the headstrong vibe she usually exuded had dissipated. Her lashes were pointing downwards, and there was a pale green area beneath her eyes, emphasizing just how thin and fragile she looked. She was all curled up into a tiny ball in the corner of the couch as she didn't want to disturb him. Her arm that was resting on the side of the couch was pale and skinny as well, and the spot at which the needle had been injected was beginning to bruise. He looked at her for a while and felt something skip in his heart. It was rare for Qin Ran to sleep so soundly. When she woke up, the 4 bag would have been empty and the afternoon self-revision sessions would be almost over. Meanwhile, some porridge was being heated up on the stove. Lu Xiaoying gathered some medicine for another student. Seeing that she had taken some of the porridge and was eating at the table, he asked, "Do you want me to help you apply for leave from classes?" "No need." Qin Ran shook her head and smiled. She spoke casually and without the distant tone that she had when she last met them. "Thank you for today." Cheng Wan furrowed his brows slightly. He'd prefer if she stayed and rested well for the afternoon, but he did not voice his opinion. When she'd left, he put his documents down and finally lit the cigarette. Cheng Wan was getting frustrated. Lu Xiaoying seemed to think about something as he looked at him and stroked his chin. Qin Ran recovered quickly and, by the afternoon, her fever had subsided. She was still a little weak but was in way better condition than in the morning. 12 marks for physics, 18 marks for chemistry. Lin Siren helped Qin Ran get her scripts. Ran, you're amazing." 1 If she rounded it off, it would be considered a pass. 1 Qin Ran looked at Lin Siren but didn't say a thing. They received their English scripts in the last period. Su Yaoguang did not leave immediately and didn't stop Xiao Sheng from going over to look for Qin Ran either. But his eyes were on them. "Has your fever subsided?" Xiao Sheng furrowed his brows slightly. "Why didn't you apply for leave?" Qin Ran nodded, picked up her books and sniffled. "I'm all right. Rest more and drink warm water." Xiao Sheng thought for a bit before returning to his seat and getting a lollipop from under his desk. He handed it to Qin Ran and raised his eyebrows cheekily. Eat this. 2 At this point, Qin Yu had already arrived outside the 9th class and was waiting for Su Yaoguang and Xiao Sheng. She was shocked to witness the scene before her. She turned away, not looking at Qin Ran. But she couldn't help but peek in that general again. Xiao Sheng always acted like a bratty young master, he sounded playful even when talking to her. It was rare to see him speak so gently to anyone. A while later, Xiao Sheng carried his bag and left with Su Yaoguang through the back door. The first thing he said was, "Young Master Su, Qin Ran's English scores improved. 30 marks. He was mocking her. 30 marks. Su Yaoguang furrowed his brows. He was really overthinking it when Xiao Sheng approached her. 30 marks. Yup, that's a huge improvement. She had a score of 0 the last time. Xiao Sheng placed his hands in his pocket. Qin Yu saw that Su Yaoguang still looked cold and disinterested. He simply smiled but did not say any more. She felt relieved. The 3 of them were influential figures in school. Any one of their appearances could get schoolmates whispering in one another's ears, not to mention when they appeared together. Some students would even stop at the foot of the stairs to wait for them, so they could walk together. 5th class of the new students. Mu Ying, let's go off together. Mu Ying's deskmate was a bubbly girl with a ponytail. She was from the affiliated stream 2 and was called Li Yuhan. Both of them did not live on campus. Easygoing as she was, Li Yuhan casually hooked her arms around Mu Ying's. With the arrival of new students today, the campus was bustling with crowds everywhere. There was some commotion further up in front of them. From a distance, they saw that a line of 3 people was the source of the commotion. There was a girl in a dress and not in the school uniform. Beside her were 2 guys whose looks were rather outstanding. Mu Ying, look, that cool-looking guy over there is our nerdy school hunk. He's a year 3 student, Su Yaoguang. The other guy is Xiao Sheng, the heir of the Qiao mandate. Li Yuhan squeezed Mu Ying's arm in excitement. And the girl beside them, do you know who she is? I do, she's the school belle of First Middle School. Mu Ying looked towards Qin Yu in some envy. She was having some mixed feelings as she saw the fine-looking guys beside the beautiful girl. Pfft, what school belle? What era is your information from? Li Yuhan looked away from Qin Yu. Don't you know that the school bell has changed since the day the year 3 started having lessons? The school bell has changed. Mu Ying heard about this news only during the summer break and was stunned at this new information. Who is it now? Chapter 30. Is that Qin Ran's boyfriend? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, the campus bell has changed. Mu Ying only knew the news of the summer vacation and hesitated. Who did it change to? Li Yuhan reluctantly retracted her gaze and smiled. It was changed to a new 3rd grader who just transferred here. Her surname is Qin Tu, called Qin Ran. There's a picture on the post of a good-looking bandit, but now it's gone, so you can only see her by going to the 3rd grader's building. Oh yeah, she's in the same class as Campus King Su. I heard that their class is always filled with people after each class. Mu Ying didn't know what to say for a moment. She should have thought about it already. Her mom had also said before that based on looks, none of the descendants in the Ning family could match up to Qin Ran. She pursed her lips and pondered to herself while nodding. The 2 of them walked slowly. Su Yaoguang and Qin Yu were about to pass them soon. Li Yuhan held Mu Ying's hand a little harder and said excitedly, I am actually so close to the 3 of them, Mu Ying also thought out. Looking at Qin Yu talking to Su Yaoguang, she opened her mouth and almost wanted to call her cousin, but didn't expect Qin Yu to pass by her directly. Mu Ying, what's the matter with you? Watching Qin Yu and the 3 of them walk out of sight, Li Yuhan patted Mu Ying, who was in tears. 3 Mu Ying tucked her hair behind her ears self-consciously, still looking at the direction of Qin Yu. It's nothing. The two opened the door and saw 2 cars not far away, a BMW and a Maybach. It was for Qin Yu and Xiao Sheng. Su Yaoguang lived on campus. 1 inch I invite you to drink milk tea. Li Yuhan dragged her to the milk tea shop across the street. The milk tea shop next door is delicious, but unfortunately, there are too many people queuing for it. Let's go to the shop with fewer people. Qin Ran was always in no hurry to leave once the class had ended. It was always too crowded and noisy. She stayed in the class for a while. It happened that the biology teacher was hurriedly taking the papers. He didn't enter the class and saw Qin Ran, who was just walking past. He taught several classes and there were many people in each class, so he couldn't remember everybody's names. But he knew this student. She was a freshman and had poor learning but was good-looking. Qin Ran, bring the papers to Zhongde and let him bring it here tonight. The answer sheet is on top, let him copy it down on the blackboard. Qin Ran took out a lollipop from the box. She slowly peeled it before putting it into her mouth. The sweet taste spread and the bitter taste in her mouth dissipated. She put the paper on Zhongda's table. And found her own paper again. 24 points. She just put the paper in the hole on the table, and as soon as she turned out of the classroom door, she saw the boy who had been leaning against the wall of the corridor. His thin lips were tight and his face was cold and arrogant. It was Mu Nan. For you. Seeing Qin Ran, he stood upright and handed her a bunch of notebooks. Qin Ran sniffed and took it. Her voice hummed a little. What? Notebook, Mu Nan said coldly. One seeing that Qin Ran was careless, he added, I looked for Brother Song for this notebook. Didn't you say you wanted to go to Peking University? One Qin Ran's hand holding the notebook paused. She had said she wanted to go to Peking University. Ning Qing had taught her not to be impractical, and Qin Yu had been disdainful. Even Aunt didn't seem to really believe her. Everyone probably thought that she was only joking. 3 She didn't expect Mu Nan to be so motivated. Qin Ran flipped through the notebook. It was a new ink color and was clearly noted down, having been reorganized by Mu Nan. She looked at Mu Nan's black eyes and squinted slightly. Thank you. Don't thank me, I wanted to organize Mu Ying's notebook, Mu Nan said with no expression. I just copied for you conveniently. Bye. 1 inch wait. Qin Ran smiled. She went into the classroom and placed the notebooks on her table before coming out. Mu Nan was still waiting for her at the entrance of the stairs. Today Qin Ran was walking slowly. Although her fever had already subsided, her face still had a slight abnormal flush. Mu Nan glanced at her several times, frowning. As soon as they left the school, a black Volkswagen happened to come in slowly. Mu Nan stepped aside and pulled Qin Ran's arm, but didn't expect that the Volkswagen car would take a turn and stop at the side of the road. Hey, the window lowered, and the person in the driver's seat showed his face. His earrings were extremely shiny. Qin Ran, why are you out? The man in the back seat squinted his eyes casually, and when he heard this, he opened his eyes suddenly. Lu Xiaoying looked at the rear-view mirror and touched his chin with a smile on his face. Cheng Wan put down his pillow, opened the door and walked out of the car. He gently glanced over Mu Nan, then lowered his head, looked at Qin Ran, and said very casually, You're going out with your friend. No, I wanted to give him something. You two can wait for me. Qin Ran asked Mu Nan to wait and then walked to the bubble tea shop opposite. Cheng Wan nodded expressionlessly. He leaned back, lowered his head slightly, glanced at Mu Nan, and raised his eyebrows lightly. Young Master Cheng was always proud and didn't speak. They both looked good. Cheng Wan, in particular. Yuncheng was a slow-paced city, and at night, the entire sunset was a little gentle, but because of his strong invasion, he added strong and vivid colors to it. Mu Ying and Li Yuhan, who just came out of the bubble tea shop, were stunned. Last time they had met it was at night, so Cheng Wan's appearance had been blurred by the lights. This time, however, the light was enough to shock Mu Ying. The most outstanding visual they had seen in reality was probably the campus king Su Yaoguang, and then famous entertainment stars. There were naturally a lot of good-looking people in the entertainment industry, but they all had a layer of filter across the screen. Oh! My God! Li Yuhan finally reacted. Without even opening the milk tea cover, she pulled on Mu Ying's arm. That's the new school doctor in the school medical office. I kept seeing posts saying that he was handsome, and it really is him. I finally get to see him alive. She was agitated for a long time before she calmed down. Who is the guy next to him? He looks handsome too. He's wearing our school uniform as well. Oh my God, I've never seen him before. Could he be a freshman? Why are the freshmen so handsome this time? I know them. That's my brother Mu Nan, we are fraternal twins. Mu Ying took Li Yuhan's hand, her heart beating fast. I'll take you there. Mu Nan. She took Li Yuhan and ran over. Is this your friend? Mu Nan was always cold. He glanced at Mu Ying, nodded slightly, and didn't speak. He glanced again at the famous bubble tea shop. Qin Ran was very quick. She only went in for a minute and then came out. He and Cheng Wan both had very purposeful eyes. Mu Ying and Li Yuhan subconsciously looked over to the place. At a glance, they saw a girl wearing a large school uniform coming out. The girl was carrying a shopping bag in her hand, her eyebrows delicate. Mu Nan immediately crossed the street and helped her get the bag. He was cold and arrogant, exactly the same as described in the post, unapproachable. 1-inch campus belle. Li Yuhan felt like she had gotten some good luck today. On the first day of school, she had managed to see all the important characters in school. Lu Xiaoying had been sitting in the driver's seat watching a movie. To be honest, it was the first time he saw Qin Ran being so tolerant to a boy. Forget that he was leaning so close to her, but he could even pull her by her hand. If it were him, Lu Xiaoying thought that she would break his arm. He watched as young Master Cheng leaned against the car window and looked as Mu Nan helped her carry her bag naturally, expressionless. Lu Xiaoying couldn't help but laugh. He lowered the window of the driver's seat, looked out, looked at Qin Ran, and said with a smile, "Qin Ran, who are you to make us wait?" He glanced at Cheng Wan and sniggered, then turned to Mu Ying and smirked. Do you all know each other? That classmate is Qin Ran's boyfriend. No, that's my brother. Qin Ran is our cousin. She's 3 years older than us and only transferred to first middle school this year. It was a rare opportunity to speak to him, so Mu Ying stuttered. Oh, she's your relative, 3 years older. Lu Xiaoying glanced at Cheng Wan. After hearing that Mu Ying was her relative, his smile eased. Did you skip a grade? Mu Ying shook her head and said very vaguely, no, she retained a year, because. Anyways, the school before didn't accept her, so she transferred over to first middle school.